Hello and welcome. Today is January 1st, 2021. This is the first video of the year. This is essentially the first constructive thing that I have done so far this year. So, a little pat on the back for that. Getting motivated. And today, as we always say, because we always say, today we're going to talk about da 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 da. So that's my general locution or way of speaking, and I usually, or not, I just said it, so just say it one more time. Today we are going to talk about the train of life analogy, and this idea is interesting to me, firstly because I've had it for so long and never talked about it like explicitly. I don't have any videos about it on my channel, but now with this video we do. So what is this idea about? It's about a well, it's an analogy, and what's an analogy? An analogy is simply explaining one thing with a scenario. Explaining one thing, saying that it is similar to this other thing. And so you can say that life is like a train, and what's happening is that you have the so you have the engineers in the train, and you can disregard the fact that you can put engines at the back of the cart and have them push, at the back of the cart or carts and have them push the carts forward, or you can put the engine at the front of the cart and have it pull the carts along. And in so doing, using the engine being at the front of the cart explicitly and exclusively, rather, not explicitly because we just stated it, that's explicit, but exclusively at the front of the carts. And we see that, well, the engineers, who are the people driving the train in the engine, they get to see whatever comes up on the scenery first before anybody else. Like if you're in a train and you're the engineer in the engine at the front of the train, you get to see the whole view before anybody else gets there, and you get to make decisions where other people, like on the train, yeah, they can make decisions like when to get up and go to the bathroom, or decisions, but they're not really affecting the momentum, so to speak, of the train. I mean, there'd be like, hey, driver, slow down, or driver, speed up, but that's all up to the engineer's discretion, whether he decides to put more coals on the fire and increase the speed. So the idea, so why do we use a mountain? We use a mountain as part of the analogy because to our left-hand side we have, and below, we have the ocean. It's the ocean of chaos from which order rises from the left-hand side, and it just creeps its way up and sort of exponentially gathers steam as it approaches a critical point in the path, along its path, along the journey. And what is that point? That point is the top of the mountain, which symbolizes simultaneously like where we are now. In other words, like we've come up the mountain, evolving all the way through. That's why I kind of put dinosaurs, Bigfoot, little suggestive things or rather like things suggestive of not only of evolution, but also of like secrets or whatever, and just to be provocative, like thought provoking. And but uh, but yeah, so you're like it's physically at the top of the mountain, so it's like a critical juncture, and then there's that fact that you're the engineer in the engine, and you're seeing what the rest of the passengers on the train cannot see, and that is that there is a perceived problem ahead of the track, and that is the this this gap of uncertainty, as we call it, symbolizes the finite resources and things of that nature. Just all the perceived problems like compounding, whether it's like deforestation or speciation, which, if I'm not mistaken, means like, or extinction, speciation, something like that, like extinction, messing up the food web, loss of food, loss of habitat. Not so much on the climate changing, but well, yeah, if they have weather modification devices, and they're probably, you couldn't put it past them to try and like sabotage the weather to get it to do they, because they do anything really to at least it seems like they don't leave anything off the table, at least in terms of what lengths they're willing to go to in order to get people to uh, like stay in their seats, you know. And um, so yeah, they calculate, you're the engineer and you calculate, this is like seeing it as the analogy, right? Like, so you're the engineer and maybe you are legitimately concerned about like, oh crap, like, yeah, we're coming up on this gap, but there's a nice little hump. Maybe if we had enough speed, we could get over it. However, you calculate that you don't have enough energy to get up enough speed to be able to safely get everybody across to the other side, because if you weren't going fast enough and you derailed, and then the whole train, you know, and uh, furthermore, I had historically envisioned it as the engine is kind of stuck, or maybe at the very least, it's sort of in like a pause moment where it's like symbolically paused or stuck. You can look at it like two different ways, I suppose, there, where uh, either like just paused or it's like physically stuck because like we just can't get any further. So it'd be like a double problem, cause right, because like if the train was stuck and there was a hole there, you're like double fucked, right? Because even if you were able to like start slowly inching over the top of the mountain and pull all this like humanity and animal life and civilization just all together and like across the gap of uncertainty over to the, the western shores where the elves are, you want to be pretty damn sure that you're going to make it. And so the dilemma comes in because well, dilemma is like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. The classical two-legged dilemma is like you don't want something to happen, and you have two options. If you do option A, it happens. If you do option B, it still happens. But oh yeah, I remember now. Yeah, this is a dilemma, but it's only a moral. It's like a at least I think it is. I'm just like trying to remember it all. Plus, it's you know, but it's like a moral dilemma, right? Because if you pull the plug, assuming that like you were correct in your calculations, there wasn't enough uh, resources, and you're like, yeah, we have to do this in order to save what little bit of humanity we can, or but if you do that, then you basically have like the blood of all the people that you killed on your hands. But then if you don't do it, then you let everybody sink back into chaos, sea of nothingness, or sea of chaos, basically going extinct. But then you choose the lesser of two evils, and the lesser of two evils is a really bad thing to do. It's like a mass depopulation. This is an analogy for the global depopulation agenda. And because the way they're looking at it, they either pulled a pin or oh God, I'm so sorry for just being like a stuttering moron. But they either pull the pin and take that moral responsibility, or everybody dies. But then on the other hand, you have people saying that like it's not really something that a morally a truly like morally just leader would find some other way out of it, or they would just like go down with the ship, and not backstab the rest of the people. But so in some sense, like it almost requires like a morally degenerate sort of personality to really go through with this. Like, but let's like try to change the tact, or just back up and look at it for a second. So it's the train of life analogy, not discussed in the presentation. That's talking about a previous video where I had this slide in there, but I just sort of like teased it out and never got around to making a video about this. But here's day 1 of 2021, and here we are. And I suppose this family here having a picnic on the other side, that's like the watchers, either the globalist, or it could even just be like, aliens in a semi utopian scenario where they're okay, but what they're watching is like pointing and laughing over there, like past the Grey Poupon. And yeah, so now in the context of this being the first day of 2021, things are going to be okay. And like, even though we have this now that you know about the train of life, you know about this like powerful analogy, and I'm sure that like there are those of you listening to this now who, even from even from like the bumbling horrible explanation that I just gave, like I gave you enough to see. That's the cool thing about like being creative. Like you don't even have to have a good presentation of it. You just like all you have to do is get enough information out there to where people are like, oh, I think I see what he's talking about. And then from there, it just grows and becomes more than what you've had in mind, or at least like more than what you were able to do with it on your own. And all I'm able to do, again, is this right here, because these days I'm not in the best of health, and I I had a very minor incident that affected me in a big way, or it was a big incident that affected me in a small way, but that small way was enough to really put a damper on my productivity and ability to like be prolific in my creativity. And I just now try to tilt at windmills and whatnot. So here we are. We are tilting at this windmill, and we're uh, along with presenting the analogy, we want to present the idea that you don't need to worry. And I really mean that because, like, you have to think positively. This year's going to be good. You have to think about making lemonade out of lemons, and in order to do that, we just need to realize that well, there is one thing that I would like to talk about, but it's probably like better for another video because it's a whole big subject like this, but that I haven't talked about yet. But um, just in general, focus on what you can do with your in your own sphere of influence. Like, set out your goals, be organized, and aim high. Aim high. Go big. Do as much as you can for yourself, for your family, for your tribe, for your nation, and for the world. We are being manipulated by extremely intelligent people, and they're using supercomputers to map out future scenarios. And they don't care one way or the other if I mean, I guess it's just so different whenever you get to the very top of power. But again, one crux of the train of life analogy is that if it's not actually true that the resources are limited, in other words, like, they're trying to justify this like 80% depopulation, maybe even more than that, like 90, 95%. One out of uh, 10 would be 90. 1 out of 20 is what, 98%? So somewhere in between 1 out of 10 and 1 out of 20, like 1 out of 15 people surviving. Um, yeah, if the resources aren't actually non-renewable and they're sitting on like something like above unity devices, free energy machines, perpetual motion, anything that could be real based on conspiratorial type, but it's only conspiratorial because they attack it. There have been researchers, blah blah blah. Like, you get the thrust of the argument, right? Like, if it's not actually true that the resources aren't renewable, then yes, I correctly said that double negative. If it's not true that the resources are not renewable, then it's not justified. Killing, then the depopulation isn't justified, at least from the perspective, from like the energy argument. But then there's still, you have to think about the allocation of space and everything. Like, we can't just keep, and the other, yeah, just even if energy was fully renewable, like all the other resources that are not renewable, it just puts us in a position where we have to, it hurts. That's why I keep saying like you as the engineer, like because like we can't just hate the globalists, like because they're you in the same way as you're me and I'm you or whatever. We're all part of the same God being having this experience, as they say. But I take a more like individualistic approach to it. However, um, like pragmatically speaking, it does seem practical that we have to concern ourselves with the availability of all these different non-renewable resources and or at least resources that have that require time to replenish and replace. And if there's too many people, then we do have a problem. We've got this problem of we're being pulled back, pulled down by our own weight, and we have the hurdles ahead of us. So we're at this crucial point. We're at a pause point. The people at the top train can like maybe see a little bit. They think they know what's going on. The purple cart, the blue, green, yellow, red, all the way down to the red, like those people or those sheep or cows or animals or whatever, animal farm with, because it could, in the analogy, like it's fine to just tack on the whole rest of the web of life onto it. It's totally fine. But like the, the lower consciousness levels on down, they don't understand as much as the people at the top, and they're sort of at their mercy. But again, yeah, moral dilemma. Like, is it better to kill billions of people to ensure the survival of humanity, or is that not justifiable? And do we just, go down with the ship? Don't tell people that they can't reproduce uncontrollably. Don't tell people that they can't status quo. It's almost like a necessary evil in a sense, like where you have to save humanity from itself, and like the part of humanity that's being like poisoned and neutered and sterilized and lobotomized and brainwashed and led into an early grave is you know not any part that's going to be missed in a but I mean it's a weird thing. It's a totally weird thing, but like it just gets down to like the useless eaters idea that there are people who are essentially like, as far as like societal development is concerned and like innovation and things, you know, improvements onto society, whether they be technological or even just like writing a new book of how to bake cakes or something, like, which sounds like simple enough, right? And, but millions and millions of people like don't even have the ability to contribute anything. They just get on the government welfare. And part of the thing with the elite liberals is like, it seems like they understand that that's like collapsing the system. See, the neoliberals are not liberals, they're just called liberals, but they're using this like open border thing to collapse Western culture and global culture. They deflated all the African nations, Middle Eastern nations, everything's being consolidated. All the smart and able-bodied Middle Eastern and black people like are flooding into the West, and the puppet masters are letting them do it. It was all by design, but even that's going to be okay in the end because everybody essentially wants to have Aryan genetics, and it's essentially like way out in the future. I can already see that even something like racialism and identity politics is going to eventually become irrelevant, because as long as we're able to engage in sexual selection and genetic manipulation, like, yeah, we're going to eventually end up as, angelic, angelic looking beings. And one way or another, nobody's history, genetics, race, language, or anything is going to be lost. We're just trying to get to the next stage. Like, it's already been seen, the next level of humanity and evolution. Like, it's essentially already been birthed in the lab, but we're going through birth pains, and we just nobody planned this on our level, but we saw it. I mean, I remember like I either heard about the 500,000 figure or I channeled it or something, but it was in my mind a long while back, and it seems like it was before I heard about the Georgia Guidestones, but it was, just something that people would randomly think about. How many people are on the planet? How many people used to be on the planet? Extrapolate into the future. Oh, that's going to be a lot of people. Is that going to be too many people? What's a good number of people to have? Oh, 500 million sounds like a good number. That's the number that's on the Georgia Guidestones. But yeah, things are unfolding. It seems like they're just going to keep going with the plan to again, whether it is just or not, it is being done. Whether they are satanic motherfucking baby killers and whatever, or just or not, we will probably never know. But they so just stick with what, not stick, like, because we are speculating, but what's the truest part of this? Again, like, not focusing maybe on the aspects that we don't know, like their of motivations. So maybe like we can stay a little clear of moral judgments. However, we can just throw out the possibilities. You know, it's what is this? It's either a necessary evil or an absolute evil, or it's not evil at all, or it's necessary, it's not necessary, it's sufficient, it's insufficient. It's all on the table. It's all up to you how you want to see it. You could be wrong, you could be right. I could be right, I could be wrong. It's hard to prove, but and I didn't mean right or wrong in what I just said, because I just laid out the possible avenues. Like, I would only be right or wrong if I said, this is how it is. It's this one. It's that one. It's this option. It's pulling the pin, killing billions of people so that you can get up enough momentum to ramp up over this gap in the track here and get along to the other side. That is a prerogative, and it's a prerogative. It's, I guess like, what can you do? Like, what should you be doing now that this is openly going on? Now that we're in the new 2020 and this new era of COVIDs and COVIDs 2.0, we must stay viable, learn new skills, read, keep expanding your mind, and be responsible. Take care of yourself. Don't try to pay bills on Sunday. Do what you believe to be right. And if you do that, then you'll be okay. I think that's pretty much all I have to say.